Welcome to our greatest American art form.
The mixtape.
Now, for all of you kids who don't know,
Traditionally, a mixtape is a homemade compilation of media from multiple sources, recorded into a medium like a CD, a VHS, or cassette tape.
what we are presenting to you here is something we call Mixtape Therapy,
A collection of authentic conversations,
often wacky conversations,
inspired by what inspires us.
except instead of a cassette tape, we are bringing you a podcast
So just as you might share a mixtape, we share these conversations with you.
in the hopes that they spark a similar connection to the good old mixtape. Now,
Join us for a little
for some
mixtape
Mixtape Therapy.
He's a real man sitting in his nowhere land. He knows nowhere ends.
Today's piece of media that I brought is it's a song by the Beatles. It is on the album Rubber Soul. And Rubber Soul is kind of known to be one of the Beatles' more fantastic albums, I would say. And I'm gonna get. I know Hannah knows a lot about this song or has listened to this song a lot. I have listened to the song like twice, so the perspectives are kind of different. But I kind of want to talk about like how I got there real quick. And so just to lead into this whole mixtape therapy thing. So I'm really on this Rick Rubin kick right now.
Ooh,
And I'm really into like listening to kind of like different people and how they come about their arts. And I don't know what I was listening to about Rick Rubin, but he mentioned Steve Miller from the Steve Miller Band.
We talked about Rick Rubin on the
Okay.
podcast.
So yeah, and we talked about Rick Rubin, like, I've also done extracurricular outside of what we talked about on the podcast, right? So
Yes.
he mentioned Steve Miller, or Steve Miller came up, and then I was like, man, I just want to really hear about Steve Miller because I knew that he had done some really cool stuff inside of music. So then I found this random podcast. It was on like Bloomberg, like business, where somebody interviewed Steve Miller for Bloomberg Business. So I listened to that podcast, and Steve Miller on that podcast talked about how he was influenced by Rubber Soul. And so that got me all the way to Rubber Soul. So when we talk about like mixtape therapy and mixed media, mixing music and finding and learning and growing and understanding people and things, like there's this whole like rabbit hole I went down to get to this one song to present to Hannah. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
that came through me growing and learning in other parts of media podcasts, things I would never listen to the Bloomberg Business podcast, but I did. And that also got me listening to a couple other things. And so like it was really, really great. So I think that exploration of ourselves and our ideas, that's the whole kind of idea of this mixtape therapy thing, is like therapy should be something that helps you get better and grow, taking these things and listening and thinking and pondering and having discussions and having us grow. So the song I picked off of Rubber Soul, I could have picked any song. I picked the song Nowhere Man. And
Can I jump in and also say my relationship to this album really quick because I think it's so interesting.
well, hey, how about this, Hannah? I want you to go, so you go into it, and maybe I'll have questions for you. So you go into your part, and let's hear what you have to say first, and then maybe.
Okay, we're going to reverse the order.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So where to start? The interesting thing is that I'm not a big music person, which is a weird thing to say because I dig music. Name that movie. It's from Almost Famous. It's one of my favorite movies also of all time, which we should talk about on the podcast. But I love music, right? I'm a human, but I just wouldn't consider myself a music buff by any means. If anything, I'm really caught in the 60s and 70s when it comes to my music tastes. I was really influenced by what my parents listened to. So I actually have a very big depth of knowledge for music before 1980, but I'm not very hip and like plugged into the music scene of modern times. So I always kind of consider myself just like a little bit of a music ignoramus. But for whatever reason, Rubber Soul entered my life when I was about 10 years old. I think my dad had Rubber Soul on CD and we would listen to it in the car on the way to school. And for whatever reason, I really latched on to Rubber Soul as a kid. Like I can't tell you why, but I would just listen to this CD on repeat, and it became my like I don't know, some kind of like really important album for me as a kid. And like a lot of great music, I can't tell you exactly why it spoke to me so much. But Rubber Soul also became equated with summertime. And my sister and I, just anytime it's summer. So actually, about 2 weeks ago, my sister sent me a text. She goes, "This is just your alert that it's time to listen to Rubber Soul because summer's around the corner." So right, I don't have like a lot of music that I'm really passionate about, but Rubber Soul is one of them.
This is wild because we didn't
Yeah.
talk about that. We've never talked about this at all. I just
No.
brought the song to you, and you have all this emotion and feeling around it, right?
Yes. Like if you were to ask me what my top albums are, first of all, I'm not even like, I'm so ignorant to music that I don't even like really know albums. Do you know what I mean? I'll be like, oh, I know songs, I know artists, but like albums is not a thing. I have like 3 vinyls, and one of them is Rubber Soul. I have 3 like albums that I could tell you I really like, and Rubber Soul is one of them. So when Scottie texted Nowhere Man, I was like, because normally I'm bringing my kind of music, Scottie's bringing his kind of music, and then we kind of introduce each other to our own world. But this was an interesting little reversal where Scottie's like, "Have you heard this song Nowhere Man?" And I was like, "Have I heard Nowhere Man?"
I
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, I have. Now, it's one of the songs that I've listened to so much for so long that I have, just like anything that you know really well, you don't really think about it that carefully. For whatever reason, I'm reminded of something I heard recently where it says, like, you kind of know the people the least that you spend the most time with because you're sort of seeing them in terms of your preconceptions or what you're used to. Like it's hard to get to know someone that you already know so well, which can kind of blind you to maybe their nuances or things about them that you don't know. And I think, anyway, I was having that moment with this song. It's like, oh my gosh, I've listened to this so many times, I don't even like think about what it's really about. um so should I keep going, Scottie, about
Yeah,
what
no,
this song?
no,
Okay.
keep going. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's got a forlorn vibe, right? It's very forlorn, and I have always had a certain feeling about the song, which is that it's this kind of melancholy song, but with it's got a like pretty and cute kind of lighthearted melody to it, but it's actually talking about what seems to be like, in my mind, the potential emptiness of existence, or it's like kind of existential slash I don't know if maybe nihilistic is going a little too far, but it's like talking about the lost soul of the human condition. Listening to it more recently as an adult, and also, this is going to be probably a weird tangent, but that's the cool thing about music, is you bring to it whatever you're thinking about. And I've been really diving into the world of Zen, like real Zen, which is different than the like cultural, like, ooh, Zen means chill. It's like, no, Zen actually means uh being radically in the present moment, and also kind of realizing that you're not you are no one, there is nothing. It's this very I mean, Zen's complicated. It's this paradoxical thing um that talks about how identity is really just an illusion. The fact that you are an individual person separate from other people is an illusion, kind of coming into the idea that we're all one. The present moment is all we have, and so many ways that we conceive of ourselves and of the world around us is filtered through our own illusions. So then I saw this song is actually kind of like, it still gave me the forlorn feeling, but it also kind of hooked into this idea for me of, you know, who are we really? And it had this almost like peaceful spin to it of like, yeah, I mean, we're all like nowhere man living in our nowhere land. So anyway, it gave me this alternate interpretation where it wasn't purely negative. It was also just talking about this other way of going through life in which you're not so strongly identified with your story, but are rather this like empty vessel which sounds negative. In the world of Zen and being in the present moment, that's actually a desirable state of being. Those are my initial thoughts. I really do want to turn it around to Scottie, unless you have any questions initially.
Um, you know, I think I think the song is everything that you said. You know what I mean? Like I can relate to every idea. And some of those ideas are not exactly, it's not the same idea. Like it's like you're saying it's something different in this moment, it's something else in this moment.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is in hearing all your ideas, I can totally validate all those. But the one that you didn't mention that I thought of was that person that's really like a covert narcissist
Yeah.
and is so negative. And it's like I live in I live in the United States. It sucks. Like everybody sucks around me. It's like that,
Mm,
that like I have my nowhere plan. Like it's my nowhere plan, and I'm executing it because I'm choosing not to see the world in a positive way. I'm choosing to view it a negative way. I'm choosing to be mad and covert and passive aggressive about
mhm.
my actions. And that's what I'm getting in return back from the
Yeah.
world. And that's why I feel that way. And it was so weird that, you know, that like I said, like, you know, I thought of everything that you said. And I also had this other thought about just people that are so driven by their own agenda and not being present and aware of what's around them and being
Mhm.
open to what's around them about what they need to do, that they execute their, because it is a nowhere plan. When you're executing a plan like that for yourself and your life, it is, you are going nowhere because you need other people to make this thing work. You need the
Yeah.
interactions, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the line, just as blind as he can be, just sees what he wants to see.
See,
Nowhere, man, can you see me at all.
yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah, trapped in his worldview and trapped in a really selfish worldview. There's also a line too, the world is at your command. Um, which, yes, and I did actually, as I was listening to it this morning, that did strike me as when you are such a selfish vacuum of need, to be really harsh. um yeah, you do actually exert control over the world around you. um
You, it, it's funny how your life can be out of control. Well, that's not funny. How your life can be out of control and totally your fault, right?
yes.
And I don't mean like you deserve something. I mean that you're trying to dictate so much control that it's actually out of I mean, it's like it may be like if you were on a bicycle going really, really fast and you're trying to control it down a hill, like, you know, and it shakes when you like you're going down, you're controlled, but you're not really in control because gravity and force is really in control. You know what I mean? You're just kind of like holding on. And like that's what happens when you try to force the things that you want. Like it just doesn't like work that way. I was thinking about, man, this is a touchy subject. But we're all different and we all want to be respected and viewed for our differences, right? But you can't force someone to accept you.
Mm,
You know, you can't force exception. And if you do that, it feels like you're on a nowhere plan, like because that's not how community and that's not how this all works, right? Be accepted because you're doing the things that interact with other humans that make you a good human that makes this whole system work. That's where you're accepted at. It's not accepted by saying like, hey, you have to I have tattoos, but you still have to accept me.
mm,
That's done like that's also done through words. My actions will dictate whether I'm accepted. And everyone that I feel like everyone that knows me doesn't even see my tattoos anymore because they've already accepted me for the person that I am for them in their lives. You know what I mean?
yes. Yes. Okay. So this really leads into another thought that I've been chewing on for a long time. I feel like we need to put in our intro, Scottie. It's like we talk about songs and then they go, and then our conversation goes off the rails.
Well, but this is what I think. This is what I think is so great about it, that it's just, because some people aren't into music like I'm into music, right? So like I'm really into music. I'm into lyrics. Even my girlfriend's not into lyrics the way I'm into lyrics and the way I hear words and the song and stuff like that. But if you take it and go, like, you're not into music, you're not into even the song I'm into. Like I'm presenting the song, you're like, I hate that song. But then the conversation, we have all these different conversations, and it was just sparked by this song, just in this emotion. I think that's like really great.
No, it is great. That's why it's a little tongue in cheek, but I think it's a good thing. It's like, yeah, we have this song and then it leads to some conversation we could have never predicted, which I
That's
think is
right.
so cool. Um, now I'm losing my train of thought. Oh yes. Okay. You're kind of talking about chronic uniqueness. I think there's actually another term for it.
Okay,
It's actually,
what is chronic uniqueness?
and I'm maybe missing the exact way that it's said. It's like a psychological term. It's like pathological uniqueness. But it's a kind of a narcissistic trait. You don't have to be a like classic narcissist to have this condition. In fact, I feel like we talk about this a lot, Scottie. Narcissism is a spectrum. We all have aspects of narcissism. I have aspects of narcissism, which I actually will get into in a moment with a little bit of like a little vulnerable share. But before I go into that, chronic uniqueness is really kind of doubling down on the fact that you are unique and no one understands you. You are living in your own world. You couldn't possibly understand me. And that is a ridiculous point of view, but it is a point of view that so many of us have, myself included. Particularly when I was younger, I think I've gained a lot of self-awareness, but that thought still crops up so much for me. It's like, no one understands me, no one gets me. And in the meantime, you are not seeing or getting anyone else. You're also not actually seeing yourself accurately, because any thought, any suffering, any depressive mood that you've ever had, I guarantee you thousands of other people have experienced that. Thousands of other people have that thought of no one gets me, no one understands me. And you can be, all types of personalities can have that perspective. You could be really, bullish and dominant and an asshole about like, no one gets me, you'll never understand me. Or you could be more, lonely and sad and just like, oh my gosh, there's no way that anyone could possibly know what I'm going through. I'm so alone. More the thought of like depression of I'm so alone. I'm so isolated. No one else feels the way I feel. Everyone else is doing great and I'm doing terribly, when in reality, so many of us are suffering all the time. So a couple of things. So my little vulnerable share is that I am currently in a depressive episode, which you might not guess from hearing me because I light up when I'm having conversations. In fact, my depression really lifts when I'm engaged with other people because I get out of my own ass. I get out of my own head. So that's a crude way of putting it, but I kind of like to add some humor to this, because it's true that when we are suffering, struggling, depressed, when we are feeling like a nowhere man in the nowhere land, we are incredibly absorbed in ourselves. It's kind of a symptom of depression. You don't have to be a narcissist to experience depression and be incredibly self-absorbed. It's kind of a symptom of depression itself, which further adds to the feeling of depression because it adds to your feeling of isolation and loneliness when you are so self-focused and inward facing as opposed to outward facing. I don't know where I was going with this, other than I'm privy to that experience right now, but I'm old enough and wise enough and have gone through enough depressive episodes to see that is such a ridiculous and inaccurate frame of mind. Even though it's so easy to get sucked into it, I can see it as the mind trick that it is. And what's so funny about that mind trick is that it is it's just so unoriginal. It's like so classic. It's like classic depression. It's classic human self-pitying and suffering, which I say with a lot of compassion. I'm currently experiencing it. Um, but I think it's helpful to add a little bit of like, I don't want to say it's like loving harshness to it, to be like to myself, like, Hannah, this is not an original thought. You are not the only person who has ever suffered. This way that you're thinking that feels so specific to you is in fact kind of like a universal human experience of suffering. Like you're not that special. And in a weird way, that kind of tough love that I give myself kind of laughs me out of it a little bit. Um, Even though I can vouch, it's really tempting to fall into that frame of thinking. Don't know where that came from, Scottie. I'll pause.
It's funny that you say all these things. It just okay. What I find so interesting is what has been happening in my life right now compared to your life.
Mhm.
That's what I find so interesting. So let's just we'll kind of start with it. Okay. I also over the last couple of weeks have just been having a lull,
Mhm.
right? And I remember going to the gym and like going to do my workout stuff because like everything that I do outside of my responsibilities and and all that stuff is like to take care of me to make sure like I'm good. And so, I used to battle with like really bad depression. And so like I started taking, ownership and going, I'm going to do these things about it. So and it works, right? Like, like the consistency of it and everything. And so I was at the gym the other day and I was like, God, like, are my allergies bad? Like, because I just I didn't feel like energy, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
well, am I not sleeping well? Like, what did I eat? But and I'm like just going through my list and like
Yeah.
nothing, everything checks. I'm like, nah, it's good. Like I feel like, and then I was like, am I depressed?
Mm.
And I was like, I think I'm depressed. And
Welcome.
no, but it feels different now because
Yes.
when I was depressed before, I mean, I knew exactly when I was depressed because I had no tools to help my depression. But now that I work on it, when it comes up, it doesn't feel the same. It feels duller. It doesn't feel as sharp and as
Mm.
hard. It feels like a duller pain. And so then I'm off and I don't know why. And so then when I put it together, I was like, man, this is what my new depression is like. This is what my
Mm.
new fighting depression is like. And I
Evolving
go,
depression. We love
but
it.
but I mean like it was a positive because I was like, oh, I've really done some good work because I'm not feeling the same way.
Yes.
And it was also a negative because I was like, dang, like I thought I would never feel depressed again. And like, I don't
Yes.
feel as bad as I did before, but it's tough and I had to like really like work through it. And like I texted one of my friends and he was like, or no, he texted me and he was like, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm doing good. I'm like, I'm doing okay. I'm in a funk or whatever. He was like, you'll get out of it. And then to your point, the whole time I'm recognizing this depression and stuff, I'm like, is this the first time? Nope. Is this the last time? Nope.
No.
So how am I going to prepare better next time so I can just feel it like I feel it, feel it less, make it be dull? Like, what can I do? Like, I was just saying, like, how can I take charge of this? And so that I can be good so I don't fuck up other people's lives. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm really aware of not bringing my shit and putting it on your front porch. Now I
Yeah.
might be an asshole sometimes, but I'm not gonna take my problems and and even me being an asshole is probably me not taking care of my shit and then releasing it on you. So like that's even a sign to me of like, hey, like, I'm responsible for all my actions, right? And so I need to be at my best so that I can handle my action, my superpower, my personality, my ego. Like I have to be at my best. I think it's part of the reason why I kind of stopped drinking subconsciously is because I just wanted to be aware and on and present all the time. Like I just want to be like that all the time because once you find the ability to be present and be relaxed in the present, you want to be here. It's anxious when you're like you don't know like why I'm here or what I'm doing, but like once you realize it, like you want to be here. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
I think is that similar to what you're talking about, Hannah?
Yes. I mean, okay. Let me first, for anyone listening, I mean, make no mistake, Scottie also has many years on me.
Hey,
Not
just like,
many.
and call me old. Like, no, I'm just kidding. I don't care. So,
I always forget. Well, no. I always forget how much older you are, so I have to constantly remind myself. In my mind, you're like 40,
hey, I'll
but
take.
that's right.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I have to remind myself because you do. I consider myself wise, but you have had truly just more experience. I would imagine you've had more rounds of feeling depressed or low or in a funk or whatever you want to call it.
Well,
Um,
I'm gonna just real quick.
Tio,
I mean, I would ruminate suicide a lot
yeah,
for long periods of time. Like, you know what I mean? And so, like, I'm not escaping anything else that other people aren't escaping. You know what I mean?
right,
Like, and when I tell people that like I would ruminate suicide, they're like, "You?" And I'm like, "Me?" You know what I mean?
yes,
Like
yes,
it's hard for all of us. So I just want to say that, like, like, even though I have all these years and more experiences, it's not like it was easier or different. You know what I mean? It's very,
right.
very real,
Right. That's why I'm saying, qualifying this by saying, like, make no mistake, because Scottie and I are talking about, like, oh, the depression gets better. And it does, but it also doesn't. In terms of, like, make no mistake when I say what I am experiencing when I'm not lit up and talking to my friend Scottie is ass. Like, it's bad. It's not fun. It feels horrible. But there is this perspective, there is this window, which is like, ooh, I'm so grateful for it, that is perspective and the wisdom of having experienced this before, knowing a lot about also just how depression functions. Um, as a therapist, obviously, I'm seeing a ton of people who are also suffering and depressed. And so it's just that window of perspective to say, oh, what I'm feeling is horrible. What my thoughts are doing is horrible. But this is, first of all, going to end. It's going to end. I know it is. And it's also, this is a way of thinking that is just not the full picture of reality. This is an aspect of existence, but this is not all of existence. And this is something that I can shift away from. It's not easy at all. It is so hard to do the basic things that help you, right? Like, I worked out before this. I really didn't want to. Um, I love talking to Scottie, but my brain was like, right? I was like, I gotta do the podcast, right? Um, and then, like clockwork, I force myself to do the thing, and then I feel so much better. But I can't stress enough how difficult it is to do whatever the thing is anyway, but especially when we're suffering, when we're depressed. Um, but to go back to this idea of self-absorption, right? And I'm not saying this to shame anyone, because I am fully owning, like, when I'm depressed, I am self-absorbed. There's kind of no getting around it. But and I can't imagine um tuning into someone else or being helpful to someone else. Like, I can't imagine it. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I'm in the gutter. How am I supposed to help anyone else? I don't want to go to work. I don't want to listen to anyone else. Without fail, as I'm driving to work, which might sound crazy to people, but as I'm driving to work, I start to perk up. And then I sit with people and I listen to them and I'm with them and I'm caring about them. And truly, my depression lifts during the time that I am with other people and caring about other people, because I am shifting out of my nowhere man land. And then depression will come back, when I'm driving away from work, and it comes back, and it's not like perfect and easy. It's not, but I think there is something so important to not just like being helpful to people to be a good person, but truly realizing that you're not alone, that you can still be a valuable support to other people, and to realize that you are part of this vast network of human existence. You're not a nowhere man living in your nowhere land. You are, in fact, a part of something. You are part of a collective, even if doesn't feel like it, and even if you don't even have any friends or whatever it is, you're still part of things and you are part of the human experience. And anything that reminds you of that, I feel like, is just so important. It shifts you out of that aspect of existence in which you're alone. And it's just your nowhere man. No, you're nowhere land. Yeah. I don't, and Scottie, I want to know, how do you experience that? Like being with people and caring and getting out of your own frame of mind. I just want to know how that functions for you.
Okay, so in my coaching, it's one of my coaching points, right? So when I talk about like stabilizing your life, there's action items which are learn, serve, create. And so essentially what you're doing is serving. And when you serve other people, I mean, I don't know how to explain why that works other than you're being reconnected to the collective. Is when you
Yes.
serve other people, it's reconnecting you to the collective. And I was thinking about, like, when you have like a breakup and your friends are like, come on, let's go out. And you're like, no, I'm gonna sit home in sweatpants and eat ice cream and watch Friends or whatever.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, the reason they're trying to have you go out and the reason you should try is exactly what you're talking about. It's just like in a different, you're just using it in a different way. You know what I mean? And it
Not to
even
drink
makes,
and hook up with people, though. I don't
no, no,
recommend
no, no,
that.
no, no, I'm not, debauchery is your own choice. The point is that, you know, the interact, like, I mean, look, you like, what if your like, friends are like, come on, man, don't sit at home, let's go to church. I mean, or whatever. But the point is that like you're reconnecting to the collective, and
Yes.
that's why that works. And as much as it sucks, it's kind of like this surgery that you need to have to reconnect yourself to the whole thing. And especially if you've isolated yourself into, like, just being like codependent on your partner or what,
Right.
if you've done any kind of isolation from your friends, you need to reconnect. And hopefully in a good relationship, you're always connected. And
Yes.
in a good relationship, your partner not only helps you collect, but encourages you to connect and like is the connection and is part of your connection. And hopefully in a good relationship, it's all like about that. And there's no like negative feelings around that, because it should be. It should be supportive in a partnership or relationship or a friendship or whatever,
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, and this is kind of random, but super interesting. So my girlfriend is a musician, and nowadays, like, so now, like, when you used to get in a car, it was like 8-track tapes or like CDs or cassette tapes or whatever else it was, right? And you would get in the car with your parents and they would put in their CDs and they would put in their tapes and they would put it on their radio stations, because there was no like kid music. There was no Spotify kid Disney playlists and things like that. And TV is kind of the same way. There's only like 10 channels. You had to watch whatever your dad was watching or whatever that was, right? Me, I don't care. I've seen Aladdin more times than I've seen my favorite movie.
I mean,
Okay.
Aladdin's pretty good though. At least I feel like at least there's something for an adult there, as opposed to like Bluey, which maybe you watch Bluey. I don't
I'm a
know.
big Bluey fan.
Okay, good. I'm
But
glad you like
now,
it.
now I go through the house like singing like Aladdin songs and stuff. Look, but the point is that my girlfriend doesn't do that. When they get in the car, they listen to the music that my girlfriend wants to listen to. She doesn't cater to my daughter in that way. When they're watching TV, they watch the things that my girlfriend wants to watch, right? And the other day, um, she came through, my daughter, she's 3, she came through the house singing Earth, Wind, and Fire, September,
Oh, so good.
okay? And I realized something in a moment that my girlfriend was doing that I wasn't doing as a parent. That is exactly how this whole conversation started, right? In which your dad brought who he was and his influence and gave it to you. and it gave you this great memory and this great idea, and there's Summertime, Rubber Soul, and the whole thing. And that is a relationship bond that was created because he didn't cater to you.
He,
Like,
he did not cater to me at all.
he did not cater to you at all. And it created this great thing. And so as I've gotten into Steve Miller Band this week and how I got to the Nowhere Man song, me and my daughter, I started not forcing her, but we are listening to Steve Miller Band, and now she goes around the house singing Abra, Abra, Cadabra,
Cadabra.
right? And it's so amazing because now I'm building memories that I got from my parents, because when I heard this album, I know my mom was a huge Beatles fan. I reached out to my mom. I said, Mom, how many songs do you know on this album? She goes, I know all of them but 2.
Hmm.
And so then it makes this like full connection. And that came from, you know, awareness of what my girlfriend was doing, changing my behaviors, trying to make better behaviors, better choices, better interactions with my daughter, finding a give and pull of her experiencing me and me experiencing her. And it changed my whole perspective like this week. And I think that, man, like I didn't expect this to happen this week. You know what I mean? And it's been really good. And now we're having really different good interactions. And we were playing video games the other day, and she was singing Abracadabra by herself playing video games, which was like really awesome. So
That's awesome. And both are important, right? I think it is important for her to bring in her kid influence and also for you to bring in your influence.
look, I love Bluey. There's a show called Gabby's Playhouse, and there's this there's this cat called DJ Catnip, and then he has these songs, because a big part of children's cartoons now is the music,
Yeah.
right? And the songs that they can put on Spotify. So then they want to make songs that are like, we talked about before, like fun and happy and draw you in. And so like now we're jamming out like, DJ Catnip in my truck along with Steve Miller Band. You know what I mean? So like she is influencing me and I am influencing her and I'm embracing her and she's embracing me. And I really think that that's a bond that feels like it's been lost. It doesn't have to be music. It could be anything that you're into as a parent or even as a partner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, the support that I get from my partner doing this podcast, doing my own podcast and all that, all these things. Like, I think there's a lot to learn about the grace and space that we give others. And you've even said it before, knowing when to talk and when to vent and when to be quiet and when you should speak up. And I do get to vent because I am a person too, but I do need to be a good listener and finding that balance. And, that's kind of what this whole thing's about, I guess. Is balance.
Oh, and the individuality versus the togetherness and the having space versus, it's all a balance. I know that's
Right.
like such a platitude, but it really is true. I think all of this stuff is such a balance beam. But that's kind of the
I'm
fun
gonna,
bit.
hey, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Hannah, but I kind of want you to take us. I always take us out, and since we reversed the role to
Oh,
the
yeah.
intro, you get us out of here. And okay, bye. I'll see you later. And Hannah's gonna take us out.
Yes, thank you so much for tuning. And if you have something that is mixtape therapy, let us know. And we would love to listen, read, watch, review. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. And thank you, Scottie.
Hey, thank you. Bye.